I learned to crawl before I learned to walk, but it wasn't my choice. The grass stains on my maternity dress wouldn't come out, no matter how hard I scrubbed. They were a permanent reminder of the backyard barbecue, where my stepfather Frank taught me my place in front of the entire neighborhood. I can still hear his laughter echoing across the lawn, see the faces of our neighbors frozen in uncomfortable silence, feel the weight of my pregnant belly pressing against the ground as potato salad dripped from my hair. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning, or at least the beginning of the end. My name is Larissa, and for 22 years, I believed that family meant everything. I believed that blood was thicker than water, that loyalty was sacred, and that if I just tried hard enough, loved enough, sacrificed enough, I could earn my place at the table. I was wrong about all of it. My mother Susan married Frank when I was 7 years old. My biological father had left before I was born, and I think part of me was desperate for that father figure, that sense of belonging. Frank came with a daughter, Ashley, who was my age. In the beginning, I thought we could be sisters, real sisters, the kind who braided each other's hair and shared secrets late at night. Ashley had other ideas. From the very first day, she made it clear that I was an intruder in her perfect family. She would hide my things, tell Frank I had broken something valuable, trip me in the hallway when no one was looking. But she was clever about it, always making sure adults saw her as the golden child while I became the problem. And Frank, well, he believed his precious daughter without question. My mother saw it all. She knew. But Susan had spent 3 years as a single mother before Frank came along, struggling to make ends meet, and she wasn't about to risk her comfortable new life for me. So she taught me the most important lesson of my childhood: shut up, blend in, and don't make waves. I learned that lesson well. Too well. High school was a special kind of torture. Ashley was the cheerleading captain, popular and beautiful, with a seemingly perfect life broadcast across every social media platform. I worked part-time at Miller's Diner on Route 9, serving burgers and coffee to truckers and locals, saving every dollar I could for college. Frank made it clear that while he would pay for Ashley's education at whatever university she chose, I would have to figure it out myself. Ashley and her friends would come into the diner regularly, always on my shifts. They would order the most expensive items on the menu, leave the table completely trashed, and instead of a tip, I would find a napkin with cruel messages scrawled across it. Tip for the worthless one became a running joke among them. My manager felt sorry for me, but what could he do? They were paying customers. I endured it all because I told myself it would end. College would be my escape. I had been accepted to a nursing program at the state university 3 hours away. I had scholarships and student loans lined up. I just had to make it through one more summer. Then I met Daniel at a party. He was older, charming, and he paid attention to me in a way no one else ever had. He made me feel special, wanted, loved. We spent an incredible 3 months together before he disappeared. Vanished without a trace. Phone disconnected, apartment emptied. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after he left. I was 21 years old, terrified, and completely alone. When I told my mother, she cried. Not because she was concerned about me, but because of what the neighbors would think, what the church ladies would say. Frank's reaction was worse. He called me every name imaginable, told me I was a disgrace to the family, and announced that I had proven I was exactly as worthless as he had always suspected. But they didn't kick me out. That would have looked bad. Instead, they kept me close, where they could control me, shame me, and use me as their personal servant and punching bag. The nursing program sent a sympathetic email. My spot would be held for 1 year if I wanted to defer. After that, I would need to reapply. I told myself I would take that year, have my baby, figure things out, and still go. I was wrong about that too. The backyard barbecue happened when I was 7 months pregnant. It was a Saturday in late August, one of those perfect summer days when the sun is warm but not oppressive, and the air smells like cut grass and charcoal smoke. Frank had invited half the neighborhood, as he did every year, to show off his pristine lawn, his expensive grill, and his picture-perfect family. I was helping carry food from the kitchen to the long folding tables set up on the patio. My back ached constantly by that point in my pregnancy, and my ankles were swollen, but Susan had made it clear that I was expected to help, despite my condition. I was carrying a platter of hot dogs, carefully navigating the uneven ground, when Ashley walked past me. She stuck her foot out. It happened so fast that most people probably thought it was an accident. I went down hard, the platter flying from my hands, hot dogs rolling across the lawn. I landed on my side, then rolled onto my stomach, my pregnant belly taking some of the impact. The pain was immediate and terrifying. For a moment, there was silence. Then Frank's voice cut through the shocked quiet, loud and jovial. "Learn to crawl, because you'll never stand up anyway." His laughter boomed across the yard. A few uncomfortable chuckles joined him, the kind people make when they don't know how else to react. I lay there on the grass, covered in relish and mustard, feeling my baby move frantically inside me, and I had never felt so humiliated in my entire life. Susan rushed over, but not to help me. She grabbed my arm roughly, yanking me to my feet with surprising strength for a woman her size. Her fingers dug into my skin as she hissed in my ear, her voice low enough that only I could hear. "Don't you dare embarrass this family. Get up and stop making a scene." I got up. I brushed off my dress as best I could, mumbled an apology to no one in particular, and retreated into the house. I spent the rest of the afternoon in my room, a converted storage space in the basement with a tiny window near the ceiling that let in just enough light to make the space slightly less depressing. That night, I checked for bleeding, for any signs that my baby had been hurt. Everything seemed fine, but the fear stayed with me, and beneath the fear, something else was growing. Something hard and cold that I didn't yet have a name for. The incidents continued and escalated. At the diner, Ashley's visits became more frequent and more vicious. One afternoon, she and 3 of her friends came in during the lunch rush. They kept me running back and forth for nearly 2 hours, changing their orders, sending food back, complaining about everything. When they finally left, I found a napkin on the table that read "Tip for the baby bastard," with an arrow pointing to a single penny. My manager, Tom, a kind man in his 50s who had known me since I was 16, pulled me aside. "Larissa, I know that's your stepsister. You don't have to take this. I can ban them if you want." I shook my head. Banning them would only make things worse at home. "It's okay, Tom. I can handle it." But I couldn't. Not really. I had been carefully saving money for months, hiding cash in an old tampon box under the bathroom sink, the one place I knew no one would look. I had almost $300 saved, and I had used it to buy essentials for the baby from the Goodwill store downtown. A bassinet, some onesies, a few blankets, a mobile with little stars that played a soft lullaby. They weren't new or fancy, but they were clean and functional, and I had washed everything carefully, folding each tiny piece of clothing with a mixture of terror and hope. I kept everything in a box in my closet, hidden under some old winter coats. I would take them out sometimes when the house was empty, holding the impossibly small onesies up to the light, trying to imagine what my baby would look like wearing them. One evening, I came home from my shift at the diner to find Ashley in my room. She was standing over the open box, holding the mobile. Her face wore that particular expression I had learned to dread, the one that meant she had thought of something especially cruel. "What's this trash?" she asked, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "Please don't," I said quietly. "Please, Ashley. That's for my baby." She smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Oh, I know. That's what makes this so perfect." I watched, frozen, as she carried the box up the stairs. I followed her outside to the garage, where Frank's Mustang sat, the car he was always working on. Ashley set the box down on the concrete floor, then walked over to the workbench where Frank kept his automotive supplies. She selected a container of motor oil, twisted off the cap, and began pouring it over everything in the box. The oil soaked into the fabric, dark and viscous, ruining everything it touched. She picked up the mobile and smashed it against the ground, the little stars scattering across the garage floor. "Trash belongs with trash," she said, her voice casual, conversational. "These were gross anyway. I mean, used baby clothes? For your bastard? That's just sad, Larissa. Really, really sad." Something inside me cracked. Not broke, but cracked, like ice on a frozen lake that's starting to thaw. "Why?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, distant and hollow. "Why do you hate me so much? What did I ever do to you?" Ashley looked at me like I was an insect she was considering crushing under her shoe. "You exist. That's enough. My dad and I were fine before you and your pathetic mother showed up. Now I have to share him, share my house, share everything. You're like this parasite that attached itself to my family. And now you're bringing another parasite into the world. So yeah, I hate you. I've always hated you." She walked past me, bumping my shoulder hard enough to make me stumble, and went back into the house. I stood in the garage for a long time, staring at the ruined baby clothes, and I made a decision. I was done crawling. The next day, I went to work at the diner and gave Tom my 2 weeks' notice. He looked concerned but didn't ask questions. Then I went to the public library and started doing research. I had 7 months until my baby was born, and I had a lot to prepare. But I wasn't preparing to be a mother. Not yet. First, I had something else to take care of. I had lived in that house for 15 years, and in that time, I had learned to be invisible. Being invisible meant people forgot you were there. They had conversations in front of you, left important documents lying around, didn't bother to close doors or lower their voices. They underestimated you. That was their mistake. I started with Frank. He worked as a contractor, doing renovation and repair work around town. It was good money, and he made sure everyone knew how successful he was. What he didn't advertise was the significant amount of side work he did, cash jobs that never appeared on any tax forms. I knew he kept records. Frank was meticulous about money, even the illegal kind. I had seen him working on his books late at night in the garage, muttering to himself as he tallied up figures. I just needed to find where he kept them. It took me 3 days of careful searching to locate the notebook, hidden behind a loose brick in the garage wall, right next to where he stored his expensive tools. The notebook detailed every cash job he had done for the past 5 years, with dates, names, and amounts. I used my phone to photograph every single page, making sure the images were clear and legible. Susan was next. She was the treasurer for the street. Mark's church charity fund, a position she had held for 7 years. It was a volunteer role that came with a lot of prestige in our small town. Susan loved that prestige. She loved being seen as a pillar of the community, a good Christian woman who devoted her time to helping others. What she didn't love was being poor, which was why she had been embezzling from the fund for at least 3 years. I had noticed the pattern gradually. Susan never worked, yet she always had cash. She would come home from church committee meetings and immediately stash envelopes in the back of the pantry, inside an old recipe box that had belonged to her grandmother. I had assumed it was just household money, until I noticed that the envelopes came from the church donation boxes. One Sunday when everyone was out, I carefully opened the recipe box. Inside, I found bundles of cash, along with a small notebook where Susan kept track of how much she was taking. She was smart enough to take small amounts so it wouldn't be immediately obvious, but over time, it added up to thousands of dollars. I photographed everything. The cash, the notebook, the envelopes with the church logo. I put everything back exactly as I had found it. Ashley was the easiest because she documented her own cruelty. She had a private Instagram account, a Finsta as she called it, that she thought was secret. She had made the mistake of opening it once while I was in the room, and I had glimpsed the username before she quickly locked her phone. It took me 2 days of trying different password combinations, but I finally got in using Ashley's birth date and her boyfriend's name. What I found was worse than I had imagined. Videos of her mocking other students, screenshots of cruel group chats, photos of her and her friends bullying classmates, and there, buried in the archive, was a video from the backyard barbecue. Someone had filmed the moment I fell, and Ashley had posted it with the caption, "Clumsy cow goes down, laugh my ass off." But the real goldmine was the messages between Ashley and Chad Peterson, the quarterback for the rival high school. Chad was the ex-boyfriend of Tyler, Ashley's current boyfriend, and the star player for our school's football team. The messages made it clear that Ashley had been cheating on Tyler with Chad for the past 2 months, including detailed plans to humiliate Tyler publicly after the homecoming game. I took screenshots of everything. Every cruel post, every incriminating message, every piece of evidence that showed who Ashley really was beneath her perfect exterior. Then I began planning the event. The church potluck happened every month after Sunday service. It was the social event of our small town, where everyone gathered to eat, gossip, and demonstrate their Christian charity. It was exactly the kind of public, inescapable situation I needed. I spent a week carefully, subtly encouraging Susan to volunteer to host the next potluck at our house. She loved hosting, loved showing off the house and playing the gracious hostess. It didn't take much convincing. I used the last of my savings to buy a small portable projector and a Bluetooth speaker. I tested them both repeatedly in my room, making sure I knew exactly how to set them up and connect my phone. I couldn't afford any technical difficulties. The Sunday arrived cool and bright, one of those perfect October mornings where the leaves are turning gold and red and the air smells like wood smoke and cinnamon. I helped Susan prepare the house, setting up the folding tables in the living room, arranging chairs, putting out serving dishes. I was the model of helpful submission, quiet and obedient, exactly what they expected from me. By noon, people began arriving. The house filled with the congregation of street Marks, about 40 people in total. Pastor Jim and his wife Rebecca came, along with the entire church committee. All of Susan's friends from the charity fund were there. Frank's contractor buddies showed up, along with several neighbors. Ashley arrived with Tyler, the golden couple, all smiles and perfectly coordinated outfits. Everyone took their food and settled into the living room and dining room. I had made sure to set up in the living room, where the large white wall provided a perfect projection surface. I had plugged in the projector earlier, hiding it behind a potted plant, the cord tucked under the edge of the carpet. When everyone had their plates and the conversation was flowing, I stood up. My heart was racing so hard I thought everyone must be able to hear it, but my hands were steady as I pulled out my phone. "Excuse me, everyone," I said. My voice cut through the chatter, and the room gradually quieted. "I want to thank you all for coming today. Family is so important, and I wanted to share some special family moments with you." Susan looked puzzled but pleased. Frank was already smiling, probably assuming I was going to say something grateful and submissive. Ashley wasn't paying attention, too busy whispering something to Tyler. I connected my phone to the projector. The first image appeared on the wall, large and clear. It was a screenshot from Ashley's Finsta, a particularly cruel post about a girl at school with a learning disability. The caption read, "Why does she even try? Just stay home, retard." The room went silent. Ashley's head snapped up, her face draining of color. Tyler pulled away from her slightly, staring at the wall. "This is my stepsister Ashley's private Instagram account," I said, my voice calm and clear. "She uses it to bully and humiliate other students. Let me show you more." I advanced through the screenshots, post after post, video after video, showing Ashley's cruelty in her own words. The girl who made fun of a classmate's dead mother. The one who organized a campaign to get an overweight student to drop out. The one who posted photos she had stolen from another girl's phone and spread rumors that destroyed her reputation. Then came the barbecue video. I let it play with sound. Ashley's laugh as I fell, her voice saying, "Did you see that whale go down?" Frank's voice booming, "Learn to crawl, because you'll never stand up anyway." Pastor Jim's face had gone very red. The church ladies were whispering frantically to each other. Tyler had moved away from Ashley entirely, his face a mask of disgust and betrayal. "Tyler," I said, looking directly at him, "you might want to see these next ones." The messages between Ashley and Chad appeared on the screen. I didn't need to read them aloud. The content was clear enough. Plans to meet up after games, explicit messages, screenshots of Ashley mocking Tyler to Chad, calling him stupid, saying he was just her ticket to popularity. Tyler stood up and walked out of the house without a word. Ashley tried to follow him, but he pushed past her roughly. Her friends, her entire social circle, sat frozen, staring at her with a mixture of shock and satisfaction. High school hierarchies are fragile things, and I had just shattered hers completely. "Now," I continued, "let's talk about my mother, Susan." Susan's face went white. She knew what was coming. The images of the cash, the envelopes, and Susan's careful record-keeping appeared on the wall. I heard gasps around the room. "My mother has been the treasurer of the Street Marks Charity Fund for 7 years. She has also been stealing from it for at least 3 of those years. That's money that was supposed to go to families in need, to the food bank, to the community programs the church runs." Pastor Jim stood up slowly, his face no longer red but pale with shock and anger. "Susan, is this true?" Susan couldn't speak. She just sat there, shaking, tears running down her face. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of humiliation, of being caught. The women from the charity committee were already pulling out their phones, no doubt calling other members, spreading the news. Susan's reputation, the thing she valued most in the world, was destroyed. And finally, I said, "We come to Frank." Frank had been sitting very still, his face set in angry lines, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He knew that if I had gotten the others, I had gotten him too. The pages from his notebook filled the screen. Job after job, thousands upon thousands of dollars in unreported income. My stepfather has been committing tax fraud for at least 5 years. I've done some research, and the IRS takes this very seriously. In fact, I've already sent them copies of everything, along with an anonymous tip. I'm sure they'll be very interested in talking to you, Frank. I let that sink in for a moment, watching Frank's face cycle through shock, rage, and fear. Then, I played my final card. I also have a recording I'd like to share. I had made this recording a week ago, using my phone hidden in my jacket pocket while Frank and his friend Dave sat in the garage drinking beer. I played it now through the Bluetooth speaker, loud and clear. Frank's voice, boastful and slurring slightly. "The IRS are idiots, man. As long as you keep it cash and don't deposit it all at once, they'll never catch you. I've been doing it for years. Made an extra 70 grand last year alone, and the government didn't see a dime." Dave's voice laughing, "You're playing with fire, Frank." Frank again. "Nah, they're too busy chasing rich people. Guys like me fly under the radar. Besides, what are they gonna do? Audit every contractor in town?" The recording clicked off. The room was dead silent. Frank's contractor buddies were staring at him, probably calculating how this would affect their own businesses, how much distance they needed to put between themselves and Frank immediately. I disconnected my phone from the projector. The wall went blank. I picked up the small bag I had packed and hidden by the door earlier that morning. "I want to thank you all for coming today," I said, "and I want to thank my family for teaching me some very important lessons." I walked over to where Frank sat, frozen, and looked down at him. "You told me to learn to crawl because I would never stand up. But I did learn, Frank. I learned exactly how low people could go. And now it's your turn to learn how to fall." I turned to Susan. "Thank you for teaching me that love is conditional and that money matters more than children. I'll make sure I never pass those lessons on to my child." Finally, I looked at Ashley. She was crying now, her perfect makeup running down her face, her phone buzzing constantly with incoming messages that I knew were not going to be friendly. "And thank you, Ashley, for showing me what I never want to become. I hope Tyler and everyone else at school enjoy your little video collection as much as I did." I walked to the door. Tom from the diner was waiting outside in his truck, engine running, exactly as we had planned. He had offered to help me when I finally told him the truth about my home situation, and he had agreed to be my escape route. As I opened the door, I heard the room behind me erupt into chaos. Voices shouting, Susan sobbing, someone demanding explanations. I didn't look back. I walked out of that house, out of that life. And I didn't stop. Tom drove me to a women's shelter 3 towns over, a place I had contacted weeks earlier. They were expecting me. They had a bed available, resources for pregnant women, counseling services, and most importantly, safety. I spent the next 3 months there, working with a social worker named Maria, who helped me apply for assistance programs, Medicaid, and eventually, housing. My daughter was born on a snowy day in January. I named her Hope, because that's what she represented. A fresh start, a chance to break the cycle. She was perfect, with dark eyes and a loud cry that announced her presence to the world. I sent Frank, Susan, and Ashley a single text message from a new phone number they didn't have, with a photo of Hope. She's healthy, no thanks to you. Don't try to contact me. You're dead to me and I'm dead to you. Then I blocked their numbers and never looked back. The aftermath was everything I had hoped for and more. Tom kept me updated through his connections in town. Frank was indeed audited by the IRS. He ended up owing over $100,000 in back taxes and penalties. He lost the house, the Mustang, everything. Last I heard, he was working at a big box hardware store, living in a tiny apartment, and drinking heavily. Susan was criminally charged with embezzlement. She ended up pleading guilty and received probation and community service, but she had to pay back everything she had stolen. The church expelled her, and she became a pariah in town. She moved away eventually, somewhere out west, according to Tom. I didn't care where. Ashley's downfall was perhaps the most satisfying. The videos from her Finsta went viral at school. Tyler dumped her publicly, posting his own response video calling her out. Her friends abandoned her. She was removed from the cheerleading squad. Colleges that had been recruiting her suddenly lost interest. She ended up working at a gas station off the highway, exactly as far as she could fall from her position as Queen Bee. As for me, I took that year to heal and bond with my daughter. When Hope turned 1, I enrolled in a nursing program at a community college in the small coastal town where we had settled. It was in Maine, a place where no one knew my history, where I could be just another young single mother working hard to build a better life. It took me 3 years, but I graduated with my nursing degree. I got a job at the local hospital, working in pediatrics because I wanted to help children, to give them the care and compassion I had never received. I made friends, real friends who didn't judge me, who supported me. I built a life that was mine, not something handed down or controlled by others. 5 years after I walked out of that house, I'm sitting in a small park near the ocean, watching Hope play. She's wearing a blue dress with yellow flowers, and her hair is pulled back in pigtails. She's climbing on the jungle gym, determined to reach the top despite being one of the smaller kids there. She makes it to the platform and stands there, arms raised in triumph, the wind blowing her hair. Then she attempts to climb to the next level, loses her footing, and tumbles down onto the soft rubber surface below. I'm there in an instant, checking her over, but she's fine, just a little startled. Her eyes fill with tears, but before she can cry, I scoop her up and hold her close. "It's okay, baby girl," I tell her, kissing her forehead. "Everyone falls sometimes. The important thing is that you get back up." She sniffles against my shoulder, then pulls back and looks at me with those serious dark eyes. "Like you did, Mama?" I smile, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest that comes when I think about how far we've come. Exactly like I did. She wriggles down from my arms and runs back to the jungle gym, ready to try again. I watch her climb, my heart in my throat but refusing to hover or restrict her. She needs to learn to trust herself, to know that falling isn't failure, it's just part of learning to fly. I've taught her to be kind but strong, compassionate but not a doormat. I've taught her that family is what you make it, not who you're born to. I've taught her that her worth comes from within, not from how others treat her. And most importantly, I've taught her by example that you don't have to accept abuse, that you can walk away, that you can build something beautiful from ashes. Sometimes people ask me if I regret what I did, if I think my revenge was too harsh. I tell them honestly that I don't regret a thing. Those people destroyed years of my life, hurt me in ways that I'm still healing from, and endangered my unborn child. They weren't going to stop. They weren't going to change. And they needed to face consequences for their actions. Did I take satisfaction in watching them fall? Absolutely. I'm not going to pretend I'm some kind of saint. I felt every bit of vindication as their perfect facades crumbled and everyone saw them for who they really were. They had spent years making me feel worthless, and in one afternoon, I proved that I had more power than they ever imagined. But the real revenge, the lasting one, isn't what happened to them. It's the life I built afterward. It's Hope's laughter as she plays. It's my nursing degree hanging on the wall of our little apartment. It's the knowledge that I broke free, that I refused to let them define me, that I chose to survive and then to thrive. I still have hard days. Sometimes I wake up from nightmares about Frank's voice, about Ashley's cruelty, about feeling trapped and helpless. I'm in therapy, working through the trauma, learning to recognize the patterns so I don't repeat them. It's a process, and it's not linear. But I'm committed to it, for my sake and for Hope's. Last month, I got a letter forwarded through the shelter's address. It was from Susan. She wanted to meet Hope, wanted to apologize, wanted a chance to be a grandmother. I read it once, then threw it away. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. She had her chance to be a mother, to protect me, to choose me over Frank. She made her choice, and now she has to live with it. I've heard through mutual acquaintances that Ashley got married recently to someone from out of town who doesn't know her history. Part of me wonders if she's changed, if she's different now. But mostly, I just don't care. She's not my problem anymore. She's not my sister, not my family, not anything to me. Frank, as far as I know, is still paying off his debt to the IRS, and will be for years. Good. The sun is starting to set over the water, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Hope runs over, sand in her shoes and joy on her face. Mama, can we come back tomorrow? Sure, baby. We can come back whenever you want. Promise? I promise. And I mean it, because that's what this new life is built on. Promises I can keep, choices I make, a future I control. Frank told me I would never stand up. He was wrong. I not only stood up, I walked away. And now I'm teaching my daughter to do the same, to stand tall, to know her worth, to never let anyone make her crawl. She takes my hand as we walk toward the parking lot, chattering about her day, about the new friend she made, about the ice cream she wants for dinner. I listen to every word, present, and engaged in a way no one ever was for me. This is my revenge. This life, this happiness, this freedom. They tried to break me, tried to convince me I was nothing, that I deserved nothing. Instead, they taught me exactly how strong I could be. They thought forcing me to crawl would keep me down. They were wrong. I learned to crawl, and then I learned to run, and I never looked back.